Hello, everyone. My name is Harmon Colvette, and this is the third installment in our slideshow series on teaching high school students what is fear and the basics of neuroscience. I want to be an engineer. Today, we're going to be talking about what is tone, what is shock, what is reward, and how do they pair to make us learn both reward and fear. The big things and takeaways for this are that first, a lot of the concepts that we're going to be covering are review. They've been covered some way or shape or form before. And then second, there's gonna be a lot of activities today. A lot of problem solving on the student's part, a lot of thinking things through, and hopefully everything is going to begin to come together. This first slide is a review kind of on our convention and how synapses connect neurons, how they send signals. And this picture on the left should be very familiar, along with pretty much all the slide. Should be very familiar in that we have the axon from the tone neuron. We have our synapse and we have our amygdala neuron. That's what this example is. And we got to understand these connections of how these neurons fire with one another. So this slide kind of review, but it's very important to talk about the tone pathway for food conditioning versus fear conditioning. We can see that in the fear conditioning, it's much higher frequency. One thing to ask your class is why would it be a higher frequency for fear? And then we can get back to the concepts of it's more important to have that signal be received with a higher fidelity, which higher the tone or higher the frequency, more fidelity comes with it. So that's a big thing that's important when it comes to fear, where that tone better be received, that signal better be received, especially for exhibiting fear. Now, this slide, again, as we covered before, the big takeaway is the tone of the shock go through their different paths, one through the ear, one through the foot of the rodent, go up, meet together, and they meet the amygdala. And you can see how the tone is a weaker synapse because it's just a noise. Day one, it did nothing. I remember both the mouse and the dog, and then the shock on the shock. But you can see it's a strong synapse. Is very important because that's where the fear comes in. That's that pain response. That's way more important to the amygdala than just something that your ear hears. That pain creates that stronger response. That's what generates that fear associated with the tone. And that's that big takeaway that we really want to make sure these students understand that shock, the amygdala associates the tone with it. And since the shock has that stronger synapse, that tone is associated with it. And here comes the first activity. Since we've covered all that review, now this is a very important unit because since we've been making these claims that the circuitry of the brain is very similar to the circuitry of cars and home wiring, now it's time we actually put that in practice. And this activity should take a little bit of time. It's very important for the students to understand it, whether if this is all brand new material, you might want to help walk them through it, or if they've seen this material before, like they've covered circuitry, they've covered neurology before, basic cell biology, then you can go through this more quickly or let them do it on their own. But the goal should be at the end, students should have, if I go to the end here, a circuit similar to this. You can see your tone and your shock are the top and the bottom pathways. And this concept of making that light bulb light up, that light bulb being a learn, that should be their big takeaway. Again, if the students are more comfortable as a whole, you can let them do it on their own, or if you have to kind of walk them through it, that's okay. But this right here backs up that claim that the brain is just a collection of circuits, and this is that proof that we're making. This is creating that that bridging that gap. Now we're going to this activity. This activity stems from D1.1, which the students will have kind of already covered through that second slideshow, but we will have the other video posted talking about the collabs very much in depth, and we will go through all this information there. So you can watch that video if you need a basic background on that. Same here, D1.1, that video will talk about how to go through that collab, how to cover these questions, and how to troubleshoot mainly from the teacher perspective. Now we're on to activity 2. That brings up D1.2. Again, we'll cover that in the videos. Specifically for the collabs, I'll just kind of breeze through it right now. This is more specific parameters for tone and shock, and it's all going to be covered in the video. Same here. And then we have Collab 1.3 that talks about the calcium learning rule. Here's our conclusion. What students should be able to understand and kind of verbalize is the amygdala is where everything happens. For our purposes, for fear's purposes, the amygdala is what bridges that gap between, oh, there's a tone coming in my ear, there's a shock coming through my foot. The amygdala is the circuitry that links those two together to say, oh, when I hear a tone, I'm going to get shocked, therefore I will fear the tone. That is the amygdala that makes that statement. And students should have a much better understanding of what it takes for an amygdala to make a statement like that. So it's the neurons with the circuitry. You have the tone circuit and the shock circuit, and when they intertwine at the amygdala makes that statement that they're related.